Is anti-Zionism a form of anti-Semitism? Believe it or not, this was the topic of the Munk debates in 2024, about half a year after the disastrous events of October 7th, 2023. To discuss this, the Munk debates brought in several of the greatest minds: Douglas Murray and Natasha Hausdorff on one side, and Mehdi Hassan and Gideon Levy on the other side, opposing the motion. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Mehdi Hassan and Gideon Levy, Mehdi is a British journalist with a rich history of work in the United Kingdom, in the Qatari-funded Al Jazeera, and in the United States as well. Gideon, on the other hand, is actually a Jewish-Israeli journalist who for many, many years has opposed what he terms the Israeli occupation.
But Zionism today is the scaffolding of a building which was built already. And once you built it, you don't need it anymore. Zionism today has only one meaning, and nobody can find any other meaning. It is Jewish supremacy between the river and the sea. That's the real meaning of Zionism today.
Now, it doesn't take a genius to see that Gideon's entire argument falls on his premise. The Oxford Dictionary defines Zionism as follows: a movement originally for the reestablishment, and now for the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. If we do not support the self-determination of a sovereign people in their indigenous land, then what human rights do we support? But other than Gideon's clear struggle with the Oxford English Dictionary and the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights simultaneously, what are the best arguments that can be given in favor of anti-Zionism?
Anyone who takes an anti-Zionist position is automatically, inherently, unavoidably anti-Jewish, an anti-Semite, a racist. That is what you would be voting for if you make the mistake of voting for this motion tonight.
But of course, logical fallacies. So let's take a moment to clear something up here. Yes, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. No, not every person who takes an anti-Semitic approach once in their life is inherently an anti-Semite. People make mistakes. People sometimes don't understand the ramifications of their beliefs. It does not make them inherently an anti-Semite. But this doesn't stop Mehdi, as he goes on to make the same claims that every anti-Semite in history has ever made. I have Jews that agree with me. And he does it not once, not twice, but many times. Take a listen.
If you vote for this motion tonight, you're saying my debate partner, Gideon Levy, whose grandparents were killed in the Holocaust, he's an anti-Semite. You're saying the Satmar, the world's biggest Hasidic Jewish sect, which says it is fighting God's war against Zionism, is anti-Semitic. You're saying Jewish college students on campus, they're anti-Semites. You're saying some of the most respected Jewish voices in the world, like Abraham Berg, the former Speaker of the Parliament, Miriam Margolis, the actress from Harry Bloody Potter, they're all anti-Semites. That is what you are saying. That is what you're signing off on if you vote for this motion tonight. Douglas stepped up and accused every Jewish protester against Israel of being an anti-Semite. Thousands upon thousands of Jews, they took their right to go out on the street to protest against what's happening in Gaza, and Douglas just damned them all as anti-Semites. The college protests are disproportionate. There are a disproportionate number of Jews in these protests. They're all brainwashed, they're all idiots, they're all self-haters. A British atheist of Christian descent, a non-Jew, telling the Jewish grandson of Holocaust victims who lives in Israel that he's an anti-Semite. Because he opposes the governing ideology of Israel. Think about how absurd that is. Think about how offensive that is. And then ask yourself the question, why would you vote for that?
I have black friends. I can't be racist, said every racist ever. Mehdi, what is offensive is the name-dropping of the Jews who you found who agree with you in order to make your indefensible positions seem more palatable. Yes, it is unfortunate that throughout Jewish history, this is a recurring theme, that sometimes we are our own worst enemies. It is often those from among us who go on in an attempt to win favor with the rest of the world, in order to get more opportunities for themselves, in order to carve out their own niche in life. They go and they fight bitterly with their people. So can Jews not be anti-Semites? Please. Which brings us to Gideon's and Mehdi's second fallacy, which is in a way more egregious than the first.
What happened to free speech? What happened to the ability to criticize others?
Not any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. Not every policeman who writes a ticket to a Jewish driver is an anti-Semite. You may be anti-Israeli in the way that you are anti-occupation, anti-apartheid, and still have nothing to do with anti-Semitism. I'll tell you more than this. Israel has succeeded by this to silence any criticism. And the struggle is still the capability to criticize Zionism. And what is unacceptable is that Zionism will be above any suspicion, any question, any remark, or any criticism.
What we see here from Gideon and Mehdi is a masterclass in moving of the goalposts. While the debate is supposed to surround Zionism, the Jews' ability to possess their own indigenous homeland, somehow this gets shifted to criticism of Israel. Is criticism of Israel anti-Semitic? And yet, if you ask a Jew, the answer will be fairly obvious. Of course we may criticize Israel. It is incumbent upon us as citizens of Israel to criticize our country. Otherwise, we're not a democracy. Is criticism of Israel anti-Semitic? No, of course not. But disagreeing with the Jews' right to their homeland, that is another story. And finally, at one specific point in this debate, after all the fallacies, after all the moving of the goalposts, after everything that we've witnessed here, Gideon finally brings himself to address the topic at hand. Should we support or oppose the Jews' right to their historic homeland? Here's where it gets interesting.
Zionism at its beginning was a just cause. The idea that the Jews deserve a rescue place was the most moral idea that I could have thought at those days. Israel, the Jewish people had defined themselves already. We have a strong regional superpower, and we live in a state which is more Jewish than democratic, and the struggle should be between the two, and this struggle is still ahead of us. But Zionism finished its role many years ago. It is meaningless today. Israel has to give up one of two, either being a Jewish state or being a democratic state. As long as there are two peoples, it cannot be Jewish. As long as there is Jewish supremacy, it cannot be democratic. And this is the meaning of releasing Palestine. And it has nothing to do not with the Holocaust, not with Auschwitz, and not with many other things.
To say that we are a strong regional superpower, and so we therefore no longer need a Jewish state? Gideon, as a journalist, I expected you to be proficient in history and geography, but apparently you need a lesson on both. The Jewish problem, as it's historically been called, has plagued the world for millennia. And everybody's solution was always to try and kill us. The Egyptians tried to kill us, the Amalekites tried to kill us, the Babylonians tried to kill us, the Greeks tried to kill us, the Persians, the Assyrians, the Romans, they all tried to kill us. The Christians tried to kill us, the Muslims tried to kill us, and then 80 years ago, Europe attempted to decimate us. Today, our situation is no less precarious. We are surrounded by nations who, if they could, would destroy us in a heartbeat. We are being targeted for annihilation and actual genocide by a nation, Iran, that has 9 times our population and 75 times our geographical landmass, and several proxies in the region that are firing rockets at us on an almost daily basis. Allow me to be skeptical. As history has shown us, the only people that we can rely on to protect us is ourselves. So could we theoretically live in a beautiful multinational state between the river and the sea? While this may seem like the ultimate peace dream, allow me to be skeptical. Doing away with the sole Jewish majority state in the world, with the sole Jewish military in the world, with the sole Jewish security agencies in the world, would, if following the pattern of history, probably end in rivers of Jewish blood. And so, Gideon, it is with a heavy heart that I say to you, if it is between being a democratic state and being a nation that lives once again to tell this tale to the nation of tomorrow, I will happily choose the latter. And I say to you, and any who agree with you, that if your only solution to the Jewish problem is a final solution, if the only way to solve this conflict is with the deaths of 8 million Jews who currently live between the river and the sea, then it is with a heavy heart that I will say, yes, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and yes, you are an anti-Semite. It is my hope and the hopes of all of us here that very soon we will be able to navigate a path forward through this conflict that will end with peace and prosperity for all who live in the region, for Jews and Arabs, together.